Sophie.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Let me tell you, I'm happy to be doing this with you because I need this. I woke up to a waterfall in my kitchen and a pool in my kitchen.
What? You had a pipe break or?
No, my neighbor upstairs left their sink on and they didn't know it was on until I went upstairs to let them know.
Oh no.
And they were just like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I hope you're gonna fix it.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the solution. We're in the solution, and
We're
I did my
figuring it out.
Yes, and I did my meditation, and I'm here. I'm ready.
I did my meditation too.
Yes, you have to. You have to. And it's this crazy world. You have to. So. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I hope your day is gonna look up from here on out.
It already is. I once I got that out the way, I said I'm not going to stay attached to it. I got to keep it moving. So I'm not attached to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to congratulate you first on your short film. I just rewatched it this morning again, but I already watched it. This was my third time watching it. I could just keep watching it again and again and again.
Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so in love with it because all of the, the voiceover of you talking, it's just like everything you say hits a certain spot within myself too. Like you started off with being like, I've always grown up knowing that I was different or feeling different somehow. And right off the bat, I think, whether somebody has a similar story as you do or not, there were so many elements of it that I know so many people can relate to on such a deep level. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you.
No, thank you for even reaching out to me and wanting to go further into it because my producing partner and I, Mr. David Hand, we put a lot into that. It was very, it was as personal as it can get for me. It's real. That's my real story. And that's a human story. And it was meant to be a human story. Because like you said, I feel like most humans can relate to that story outside of gender and sexual identification, stuff like that. Like, I feel like most humans could identify with that. So we wanted to concentrate on more of the feelings, and I'm proud to say that it came across like that. People was able to receive it outside of the LGBTQ community. Everyone else has been able to receive it as well in their own way. So I'm proud of that. Yeah.
You can be, definitely. I mean, I also love that element where, for anybody who hasn't seen the short film yet, there is scenes of you talking to your inner child, and you ended with going back and giving your child that love and understanding and compassion that you would have needed growing up. And that struck such a chord within me. There's so many great elements. Everybody go watch it. If you haven't yet, watch it after this. Well, watch the live first and then watch it afterwards.
And the movie's called The Love Throughout, and it's in the link of my bio. So if you, after this, go to my bio, and it's the link there. Go ahead and push it. It's going to send you right there. And we're working on doing a full-length feature of this short film.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I cannot wait. Wow. When are you going to do that? Well, probably once the world goes back to somewhat normal.
Yeah, it's because, once you do a full-length feature, it's so much involved because that particular short film was David and I. We did everything that you saw. The hair, the makeup, the lighting, the filming, the editing, the voiceovers, all of that stuff. But then we had help from a lot of great people who just donated their time. My best friend flew all the way from Miami to play himself. So, people joined in and made it happen. So, it takes a village. So
it does.
Yeah.
It turned out so great.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Let's go.
Okay, let's go. My first question was, maybe let's start with what made you decide to film this short film, or give us a little glimpse into what what it was like filming the short film, because there's a part in the short film where you basically reversed your transformation. And I have never seen somebody do something like that for a project, and it was mind-blowing and so raw. Like, that's the only way I know how to describe it. And I want to jump right in the deep end. I want to know what that was like, and I want to hear your story about that.
Okay, so it was the pandemic, and you know, our industry suffered really bad. We weren't really working, and David and I are both signed to We Speak Models. So he's worked with you too. He's shot with you too, David.
Yes.
He loves you, by the way.
I love him too.
And the picture that you shot of me, I posted last night. Did you see the response that I'm getting from that? Yeah. They love it because it was so raw. Like, yeah, you shoot the inner person. So it was in the middle of the pandemic. We weren't working, and I am at my happiest when I'm creating, right? So we got together and we challenged ourselves to do a short film with another model, Miss Alex, and we shot The Greatness Act After. We shot her a piece of her story. It was just a challenge just to see if we can do it, right? I never made a short film, so we did that one, and I co-starred in that, and it turned out better than I expected and that we expected. So then after that, they was like, well, we need to tell another story. And they were like, well, what about yours? And I was like, now, I'm very open about my story. I'm very open about the drug addiction and I've done prison time and all of that stuff, and then how I changed my life, because I feel like the message is in the journey, not the destination, because I haven't reached a destination. There is no destination, right? So I'm open about the journey. But there's a big difference between sharing it verbally and showing people the journey visually. Showing the whole thing. So then I said, well, let me think on it. Let me pray on it. Let me see what's, you know, let me see what the Universal Stars and Miss Cleo and whoever's saying about this. And so then it took me about 2 weeks to say, okay, I'm willing to do it. But then I'm like, what part of my story are we going to tell? You know, we were going to pick out. And then I thought about transitioning backwards, going back to who I was prior to the transition, how I looked and everything, my mannerisms, all of that. And it took me another 2 weeks to try to be okay. Like, I had
Which
to grow my...
was mind-boggling, just seeing it, you know.
My family, I sent my family a picture in the middle of filming. I took a picture of me in the whole outfit. They thought it was an old picture. They said, oh, where'd you find this picture at? Because it looked that's exactly what I looked like. I looked exactly like that 12 years ago.
That is, I mean, I can't even imagine on an emotional level what that was like. Did you really have to, like, meditate on it and, like, emotionally prepare yourself for that?
Yes, I grew my facial hair out.
I thought that was drawn on. You actually, like, grew it out.
Well, it was a little both, because I last year had laser hair removal. Laser hair removal is semi-permanent. Mm-hmm. So I haven't had it done this year because, well, I had it done in 2019. So I didn't have it done in 2020 because of the pandemic. So it was able to grow back in, but it was sparse. It didn't look the same. So I had to kind of fill it in so it can look exactly like it looked back then. And it did. So I literally grew my facial hair out and all of that stuff. The clothes, I put the clothes on, the baggy clothes, and the boys' sneakers and all of that stuff. And I looked like that for a week. And
that's so crazy.
I was traumatized every time I looked in the mirror, but my neighbors are still traumatized.
They're not over it.
They're not over it. They were like, because I'm like, hey, and they're like, what? They couldn't process it. Like, they literally could not process it, because we shot certain scenes in the neighborhood, and they didn't know how to process it. And so for me, I will say this. There's a big difference between now and then, because I looked like then, but my spirit was here today. And my best friend, and I'm explaining that, my best friend was here for us filming, and he met me when I looked like that. So he was like, sweetie, you're looking like, and I don't want to say my old name, but you're looking like the old you, but your mannerisms is giving me Lily, right? Like, you need to get back to that person, because he was like, you used to be very robotic. Because I thought about every move. I wanted to look more masculine, so I need to hold my hands like this, and I need to cross my legs like this instead of like this, and
very programmed.
Yeah, I was very programmed. So he was like, you need to go back to being how you were back then, because you're looking too free, and you were not free back then. So I had to really channel who I was and what I was going through at that time, because I'm no longer attached to that pain anymore. So that part wasn't difficult. It was hard seeing myself in the mirror like that. And then it was hard inside of the scenes, because I literally had to bring myself to those moments, like the overdoses and all of that stuff. I had to bring myself to those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, like when you say that your neighbors were so shocked by it, the beautiful thing about it is that if you think about it, it just goes to show that, what we present as can be such an illusion sometimes. And I also love that in the short film you were talking about how when you saw somebody that was, really living it, like living up their feminine side, or like, really freely expressing their gender expression, how your instinctual reaction was to reject every part of that. And I could relate to that so much, where it's like it kind of touches that part in you that really wants that freedom for yourself, but you're not in that place yet, and you're so caged in that the only thing you know to do is to completely reject that when you see it in somebody else.
Wow, you went through that as well?
Yeah, I did. Absolutely. I mean, I was raised, I used to present a lot more feminine because that was just kind of what was expected of me.
Yeah.
And every time I would see an element of myself that was very masculine, I would be like, oh, no. That's like, I really believed that I hated that was not my aesthetic, but with so much aggressive emotions behind it, that it wasn't just, oh, I don't like that. It was just, you can't like that, or like, this can't be you. Like these parts of ourselves that we just cut out without probably even being conscious of it. So yeah, I know what you talked about in that part, definitely.
Yeah, it was so, like, I can't even express the level of self-hate that I used to experience. I came out the closet, whatever that means, at like 17, 18 years old. So for the first 10 years of me being out the closet, I hated it. I rejected everything about it. I didn't want to be gay or whatever, like, and I don't really like terms and labels. Labels are for bottles, right? They're not for people. But we'll go into that. But I didn't want to, and I definitely didn't want to embrace anything feminine about me. It was just, it was a difficult situation. Like, and so like you said, every time I seen anyone who was a feminine male or a trans woman, I needed them away from me, because you're going to draw too much attention to me. People are going to be looking at me because of you, all of that stuff.
Does it make you feel more fragile in a sense? Because that's how I always felt, was that if it struck that chord within me, I think because you're like, oh, get away from me, it's like you need to protect yourself, because there's this thing inside you that you're even hiding from yourself. And then when you see that reflected in another person, it's scary in a sense.
Yes, especially if they were free and they were open and they embraced it and stuff like that. Like, I totally rejected it because that's just not where I was at. And that's not what was encouraged growing up in the household I lived in. You know, although my dad, my biological dad, was raised by my mom and my stepdad, and they're very religious, you know. And my biological dad, he wasn't in the home, but we always had a good relationship. So he's never given me any issues about that, but he wasn't in the home. So my bullying came from the home. But what I will say is, and the only reason why I'm even bringing that up is because I never wanted to demonize my mom and my stepdad because I have done a lot of work in that area. And I don't feel like, I've never felt like they were doing anything malicious. I always felt loved even through the pain. That's why the film is called The Love Throughout, because I felt loved even through the pain. The conclusion I came to is that they just did the best that they knew how to do with the information that they had. They had limited tools, limited information, and they did the best that they could at that time. And I've been
their understanding of love.
Yes, their understanding of love and how they can accept having a child like myself and all of that stuff. But what I'm happy to say, and the reason why I'm bringing it up and even open to share about that today, is because this film mended our relationship. For the first time in my life, my mom and my stepdad has been able to hear me and see me and get to know the real me.
That just makes me emotional.
I was shocked when my mom called me. I was shocked when she called me I mean, we talk a lot, but it's certain landmine type conversations that we have to stay away from. And when she called me to ask me to send her the film, I was like, are you sure you want to see this? Because she won't even look at my social media because she's still not okay with the look. So she doesn't go to my social media or anything like that. So it's not like she sees me in heels and makeup and, you know. And so I said, well, I'm going to send it to you. And I sent it to her, and she called me back, and she really, well, it took her, she had to process some things too, right? But she called me back, and we had the best conversation we've ever had in my life. So, yeah.
That's more than you could ever hope, you know, anyone could ever hope for, isn't it? I mean,
that wasn't even a part of the plan.
That makes me so happy for you.
Yeah, it's a full circle moment.
That just goes to show, you know, by being so raw as you were in that film, there's something that anybody will recognize if they only care to look and listen, you know.
Yeah.
And that's so real. That's incredible. Okay, I have another question for you. So in the short film you talked about, you know, it taking 5 overdoses and 2 cardiac arrests before you, I guess, like, hit rock bottom. I don't know if you would say it that way, but was there a moment after those things occurred where you just kind of said no more? Or what was that like? Where was that flip? What was that like? Was it a period? Was it a single moment in your life?
Okay, so it was 6 overdoses, and the last of the 6 is the cardiac arrest. I flatlined twice during that last overdose. But that was not my rock bottom. I kept digging. You know,
I was still going.
And I kept digging. And what was crazy is the last year of my active addiction, I didn't want to do it. It was just such a part of my life. It was mechanical. I was just doing it because that's what I was used to doing. But I hated it. I hated getting high, and it was crazy. And what was also insane is that by that point, I came up with ways and means to be able to afford my addiction, which that's a whole nother story. And So I was comfortable, like I had everything I thought I wanted. I thought like I could just have as much drugs as I want, and people could just leave me alone, and I can have, you know, the money to afford the drugs, and people would just leave me alone, because that was the problem. People just wouldn't leave me alone, right? That I would be good. And I got all, the universe gave me everything I wanted, because manifestation is real, whether it's negative or positive, right? And I ended up in that place and I was miserable. And it wasn't until my brother, who is my brother and my dad are like my best friends. So my brother was in the military and he was in Hawaii, and he kept hearing these stories about me and how bad I was looking and doing. And so he took an emergency leave of absence, flew to Atlanta where I was living at the time, and him and my dad staged the intervention. And that's how I, you know, ended up getting clean, you know. And what was crazy is that I knew he was in town to do an intervention for me, and I was ready. And so I went and got some more drugs. I was like, okay, this is my last hurrah. I'm going to go get some drugs, and then I'm going to go back to the house. I'm going to use the drugs, and then, you know, I know what he's here for, so I know they're going to do an intervention. Well, the drugs ran out, and I had this bright idea. I said, well, I need like $50 more, and then I can sit down and talk to him, because I got to be high to talk to him about it, about getting clean, you know. I got to be high to talk about getting clean, right? So I go downstairs and I was like, hey, and they were like, oh, just the person we want to see. Come sit down, talk to us. I said, listen, I know what you want to talk about. I'm right on board. I just need to borrow like $50, and then I can come back and we can sit down and have this good conversation you want to have. And they were like, no, actually, no. We're not giving you any money, but we will talk to you. I'm like, you're not hearing me. I'm on your team. I want what you want. I just need $50, and then we can sit down and talk about it. And they didn't give me $50. So it's been 12 years, and I'm still with, well, almost 13 years. I still want my $50. So, so yeah, that's how it happened.
Well, yep. Thank God. Thank God. I mean, who knows what those $50 might have done? And maybe that was the universe being like, we're cutting you off.
Cutting me right off.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you had them to help you do that.
Yeah. And they've been my biggest fans ever since. My dad actually spent the first night in the detox hospital with me. He was on the chair next to me, and my body was going through the worst withdrawals ever. I literally wanted to jump out of my skin. I was like, this is crazy. I can't do this. I said, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasted your time, but I can't do this. I got to leave. I'm so sorry. And he was just as calm, and he's on the chair next to me, and he said, listen, I have good news and I have bad news. He said, the bad news is what you're feeling right now is called withdrawal, and this is what you've been avoiding this whole time. He says, and whether you get clean today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, you're still going to have to go through what you're going through right now. He says, but the good news is you only have to do it once. And I heard him. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I said, this is it. So I just kind of strapped on my seatbelt and said, let's go along for the ride. And, you know, and that's what I did. And then, you know, I went through the whole detox process, which was hell, but it keeps me clean today. Because every time I think about going through that, I said, no, ma'am. Mm-hmm. And then I went to rehab. Yeah. So, yeah. Long-term, inpatient. Yeah.
Well, you were ready at that point. It just needed, you know.
Yeah. I just needed a push.
A helping hand, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who, not necessarily based, you know, on drugs or addiction, but what would you say to somebody who's still in that place where they feel like they're ready, or they're close to being ready, they want to live out who they are, they want to, you know, create that space for themselves to finally give them enough self-love to be able to get to a place like the place that you're in today, but they feel like they don't know how to do that, or they don't know how to start, or you know, they don't know what to tell themselves in order to find that strength within themselves to be able to allow themselves to do that.
That's a really good question, because what I came to find out after I got clean was that it was never about drugs. It was not about drugs. Drugs was just one of many symptoms of me rejecting who I was, not living my truth, pain. It was just one symptom, because after I got clean, that's when I was left. I didn't have that excuse anymore of, oh, I use drugs, I'm high, don't worry about me. It was like, no, what's really wrong? Oh wow, I was trying to escape some form of pain, right? I was trying to mask something, because it wasn't until I used the drugs that was the first time that I didn't feel that whole mechanical feeling. I wasn't afraid of what people thought about me, what people were saying about me, with all of that. Because up until up until then, that's all I was afraid of, was how people perceived me, right? And so what I was willing to do was I was willing to be uncomfortable so that everybody else could be comfortable, which is an illusion. That's never going to happen. That is never going to happen, right? Even if they're comfortable in the moment, there's never going to be a way for me to keep everybody comfortable. But I do have a choice on how I'm comfortable. And that's when I started to be open to the notion that, number one, I didn't know who I was. Number two, I was afraid, I was scared, I was living in fear. And number three, that it was possible for me to do something different, because what I was doing was not working for me. And quite frankly, it wasn't working for anyone else either. Because what it did was it kept me from even having a real open, honest relationship with my family, with my friends. How are they going to get to know who I am? How am I going to ask anyone to accept me when I haven't accepted myself? There's no way. That's backwards. So I had to say, wow, let me take responsibility and say that I've never even given anyone an opportunity to get to know me, because I've never given myself the opportunity to get to know myself. So let me start there first, right? And so what I had to do was I had to destroy and rebuild. I had to question and challenge every single thing I ever thought I said I believed in, and investigate it. And I had to unpack the bag, right? And I had to investigate it. And I'm like, oh, okay, wow, this is a phone. It's an outdated phone. Don't need that, And it's like, oh, this is a remote control. Okay, still works for that TV. I'm going to keep that, Oh, this is a bottle of water. Okay, well, I can use this for more than drinking. I can use this to water my plants. Okay, like I had to reevaluate every single thing in my bag, right? And some of the stuff had to go. It was outdated. It didn't belong. It never belonged in the first place. It wasn't even mine. That belonged in somebody else's bag. That belonged in my mom's bag. That belonged in my grandmother's bag. Why is this in my bag? Get this out of my bag, and that's what I started to do. And then it just opened my world up to, it really brought me back to who I was as a kid. That free person that I was before the doll was snatched out of my hand.
Yeah.
Before I thought that something was wrong with me, right? It brought me back to that. And that's who I try to live in today. I try to live in that I try to be that kid before the doll was snatched. That's how I live today. Free. If you like it, you like it. It's okay. I understand I'm not everyone's flavor. My style is not everyone's flavor. My creativity is not everyone's flavor. Whatever. It's for who it's for, though.
And it's you.
It's me.
It's all now that bag is filled with just you.
Just me. Yeah. Yeah. And every now and then I go back through the bag and see what's obsolete and what has to go and what has, and what needs to be adjusted. And, oh, wow, I can, this actually is good for this, this, and this. I thought it was just good for this. And, yeah, but it's me. It's me. And I'm proud of that. I'm happy. And that's my passion. I like to help people get to that place. That's what I like to do, in any way that I possibly can. I feel like the universe has me here. That's what I'm supposed to be doing with my human experience, is to help people get to that place of self-acceptance and self-love, right? However I can help. I can water a seed, I can plant a seed or whatever, but I just feel like that's my passion. I love to see people free. I love it.
I relate to that on a really deep level. When I started unpacking my own bag, it almost felt like I was remembering what it was like being a child. Like I was finally tapping back into that feeling of, we're all under the universe, we're all born with endless self-acceptance and love. As a baby, you would never question your purpose on this earth, or you're not even aware of any boxes that you're going to be raised into. And I love that you had that element in the short film where you went back and you had that conversation with your inner child and you remembered we're all born perfect and for who we are, and that child still lives inside us, no matter how much outside influence is there to distract us or cause us pain or put us in a box. That felt so healing to me that you brought that up and that you made that an element in the film, because we all have that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very important, that element, for that reason, what you just said. I'm just really happy that you received the message in a way that we intended to put it out there, because that's exactly what we wanted to display, was that child is still there. And today I'm conscious that I'm taking this child to the park. I'm taking this child on a walk around the neighborhood, right? We're going to wear what we want to wear. I can either wear jeans, I can wear a tutu, or I can wear both. This child, we're going to do what we want to do, and we're going to love, right? We're going to do whatever I do is going to be out of love, right? When I create anything, it's out of love. When I put makeup on someone, when I was still actively really doing makeup as a makeup artist, I was doing it out of love, right? I don't do anything I don't love. My mentor, he died last year at 96 years old. And he had a saying that he always said, which was, if it ain't fun, don't do it. If it ain't fun, I'm not doing it. I'm enjoying this human experience. I'm not here to suffer and be in pain and in bondage and stuff like that. That's not what I'm here for. No. Mm-mm.
And nobody is.
No, we're not. And I don't like to see it, and I choose not to experience it. Just like I was sharing at the beginning of the video. I woke up, I was pissed to the waterfall in the kitchen, right? But I allowed myself to feel it, to process it, to get into the solution, and detach from it and come and be here and present for this moment. That's what it's about for me today. I'm not going to hold on to painful experiences today. I don't have to. Yeah, I'm going to deal with some things. I'm going to deal with it. Definitely going to deal with it. But once
and I get deals with a lot.
Yeah. That's it. That is it. And that's what I hope that this gets across. And the other thing is we got a lot of responses, and we intended on this as well. We got a lot of responses and messages from parents with children in the LGBTQ plus community. And they were able to open up and share about their struggles with having children, a part of the community. because they have expectations for their children. And I'm like, well, did the child ask you for those expectations? I mean, because, you know, one thing I loved about my dad, I asked my dad what was his process like? Because my dad is, you know, he's a street dude. He's a hood dude, you know. I said, what was it like for you? Tell me, how did you get to this place of just being able to just accept me so well and just let me be me, right? Because a lot of black men from where he's from, they don't take that very well. So I wanted to know what it was like. And he shared it with me, and he said, you know, I knew who you were the moment you started walking and talking. I knew who you were. He said, and I wanted to go into denial, but then there were a couple family members that helped, you know, me look at it. And so then he looked at all of his issues, and he said, when he looked at all of the issues that he had with having a child like me, he said, none of those issues have to do with my child. They all have to do with my ego.
Wow.
And he said that's when he left it alone. He said, and then from there, his concern became more of, you know, what's life going to be like for you? I need to be there to protect you. I mean, you don't need it from me. You don't need to have any harsh criticism from me. You know, the world is hard enough. So I hope parents was able to see that. And I can honestly say that a lot of parents were able to see that, you know. So
yeah. I mean, I guess for a lot of parents, putting their child in those boxes that they were also raised into, for them it is a form of protection. That's what I had to realize about my family and my growing up too, was that, you know, parents don't necessarily intend to cage their children in, but I think that liberation of your own child lies in recognizing that the more space you can give that child to not have to bend to what they perceive to be safe for their child, or that image that parents get in their head, right, for how they want to see their child's happiness progress, or, you know, like that idea of what they need to give their child in order for that child to live up to that definition of happiness in their head.
yeah,
that is so important to talk about now that, you know, there's a new generation growing up. We're gonna probably, you know, put children into the world, and now that, you know, we can talk about what it's like having to bend to those expectations, and what it takes to free ourselves. I mean, you went through so much pain before you were able to even take a step outside of that box, right? What can we do to prevent that from carrying that on to the next generation and to liberate ourselves from that?
yeah.
Not a question for you, but just, you know, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
What is that going to take? And I think talking about it, watching a film like the one that you're making, is a good step in the right direction.
Yes, and you're right. We were careful about how we put that message out there as well, because we recognize that, like, for instance, I didn't want to demonize anyone because I'm not there. I don't live in pain today. So I was like, how do I share this experience without sharing, like, coming from a place of hurt and pain and anger and things like that, right? It's more of a place of understanding. I understand ignorance better today, right? I understand self-hate. I also understand what you were saying about the protection piece, because my mother and my father both had the same agenda, which was protection. It's just that my dad showed up different from my mom based on what was in their bag, right? And my mother's was like, well, maybe if I could try to stop my child from being gay, my child wouldn't have to go through all of this. Based on her ignorance. Like, because you will be surprised how ignorant, and I'm not saying that in a bad word, I'm saying that in the Webster's Dictionary version, which means they just don't know.
Yeah, as in not knowing. Yeah.
You will be surprised how much people just simply don't know. And by understanding that, it doesn't let them off the hook. It lets you off the hook. Because for me, it had me to stop taking on so much pain and anger, because I'm like, they just simply don't know. And they don't understand. And it's not even their job to. It's my job to understand who I am and what I'm doing. That's the only person who has to really understand. No one else has to understand unless they choose to. So I feel like with this film, we're giving them more choices. We're showing them that it's okay and to listen to your child. That's pretty much what we want parents to take from this. Listen to your children. You don't even have to agree, because no one's asking you to agree. No one's asking you to change your belief system. No one's asking you to change or deny your religion or your spiritual beliefs. Just listen and be open to something different or other than what you believe, other than what's in your bag. You know?
Well, I think your film does even more than that, you know. In a sense, it's almost like you're giving them their freedom back, because if you look at it from a place of a parent wanting to love their child, but only having, you know, a certain, you know, capacity under which they understand how to do that, by taking that power into your own hands again and saying, I'm going to love myself for who I am, and I'm going to freely express who I am, you are enabling them to start recognizing that in you, which, you know, obviously sounds like that film really helped in that department. And that I find so inspiring. I think that is one of my favorite parts about your story that you told.
I didn't expect that. I thought I was going to help other people's families. I was not expecting that one. That was a curveball. I didn't expect for my family to be healed. That was a bonus, because I've gotten to a place before that day of that conversation with my mom. I got to a place of acceptance with it. Just understanding that, you know, she didn't know, she wasn't willing to know. And she don't have to, you know, but
now she can.
But now she can, and she's willing to get to know me, you know, the real me, because, you know, it was just insane to me how people on social media who've never met me in real life knew more about me than my mother. You know, that was kind of amazing to me. And mind-boggling in a way, but it was just something that I had to find some peace with, or else, you know, I was just going to be still stuck in that hurt and pain and anger and resentment, and I just didn't want to live that way, you know. But it was mind-boggling that I'm like, wow, you really. And what's crazy is people around my mother started to become aware of my work and started to follow me on social media platforms and stuff. So what happened is people around her would start talking to her about my stuff, and she knew nothing about it. And it made her feel a type of way. She was like, oh, okay, that's great. Yeah. They'd be like, yeah, you know, when Lily did blah, 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 and this and that. Yeah, you know, she would have to act like she knew, but she didn't.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's easier to, you know, I find that too, that sometimes it's easier to open up to, I mean, sometimes it's strangers, right? But at least we have the ability now to find people who we know will hear us. And I think that translates. And that is my hope. I mean, that is why I asked you to come on here and talk about it today, because it really just takes planting that little seed, and I think that's what your film does, and I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me about it too, and being so candid, so raw, I know we went really deep. Apologies for everybody that didn't expect to, go in that deep on a Sunday morning, but I love that we have this recording now and that we can put it out there and maybe that it'll transcend to some of the people that watch it. And thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for inviting me and sharing your platform with me. And that comes from myself and Mr. David Hand, who directed, produced it with me, and everyone who's a part of it. And, so anyone who's watching, if you would like to go see The Love Throughout, you can go to the link of my bio at YB Limited Official. And we're working on some other films as well. And then we also have The Greatness After. That's another LGBT film as well, but it's not limited to LGBT because we wanted to do it as a trilogy. So we're going to do a third one as well, and then make all 3 short films one short film. So that's what we're going with it. And I thank you for inviting me and allowing me to just be me and express who I am and my journey. And hopefully somebody got something out of it because I enjoyed the experience.
I did too, definitely. There were so many emotional and deep moments, and thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to see the new film that you're going to make, and I'm going to link your film again. So everybody that has been watching, thank you guys so much. And yeah, I highly recommend you check it out. It's not very long either, so it packs a punch, definitely. And I'll link it again so everybody can go check it out. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I hope you get to fix your waterfall in your kitchen.
or just take a swim.
Or just go for a dip. Exactly. All right. I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too, boo.
Bye.
Bye-bye.